Alright, in this tutorial we're going to show you a little bit about macros, and we'll start off with the basics. The first thing you want to figure out is actually where to access that, and we'll actually go into the settings here to bring up a new tab in the ribbon. So if you go up to the Microsoft button, go down to Excel options, and then under popular, where it should start out, you'll see that the third checkbox option gives show developer tab in the ribbon. Go ahead and click that, hit OK. And if we come to the developer tab under the ribbon, you're going to see that it's going to come up with some options here for code, controls, and XML. Now these code controls includes the macros, which is exactly where we want to be with recording. We'll show you a little bit about relative reference and security stuff. Also, these controls will come in handy later on, but this is where you're going to want to access most of your macro stuff. You will notice that under the View tab there is a macros icon here, which has a limited number of macros things. Just know that we will be using some of this expanded stuff in the future. Also with the macros, realize that when we save this, there's a special save as. So if you were to save as in the scribble session, underneath that we're going to have enable macroed workbook. So there's a basic one and then a macro enabled workbook. This actually includes the macro in the workbook so that you're able to save the file and send your workbook with the macro inside of it. So this will be necessary when you submit your files. So you're going to want to go ahead and click here, and I'll just put scribble session test, and we'll go ahead and save that with the macro enabled. Now, in general, we're going to start off with just recording a macro. This is the simplest form of a macro. This basically monitors every step that you make, whether, as we will show you here, you're going to add values, add formatting, or add formulas, any of that stuff in here. It'll all come back to just by simply recording it. It's going to follow those exact same steps in future. This is helpful for when you have many files that come through of the same type, and you can just use that macro over and over again without having to go through each individual step. So let's go through and show that to you real quick. We're just going to click on record macro. Here we'll submit a name. We'll just call it macro record. You see that I can add a shortcut key here. That's just going to give you an option for instead of having to go through the file system to find the macro, it'll just give you a shortcut key with the Control Shift. In this case, Control Shift came through because Control R is already referencing something. If I were to use a number instead, you can see that Control +1 would be an option. It doesn't add the shift here. So we'll just do that instead of the letter because it's fewer keys. Notice also that under Store and Macro In, you have different options. We have a personal macro workbook as well as this workbook. You're going to make sure that that's set to this workbook so that when you save your file, everything, all your data as well as your macro comes through the file, so that when we check it, everything will be accurate. So we'll just hit OK. Oh, and the shortcut key doesn't indeed need to be a letter, so we'll just call that Control Shift R. So Control Shift R will do what we need. Alright, so now we're into recording the macro. You can see up here that the stop recording button has shown up instead of the record macro, meaning that we're starting to record, and this will record anything that you do. If I change to this cell, that's already recorded that I've changed where the cursor is at. Okay, any movement of the cursor is recorded, as well as what we're going to show you here, either add values, add formatting, or add formulas. So just simply adding values, this could just be any value, 234, hit enter, that's all recorded. I can also add text. Either of these, very simple there. Adding formatting, so if I wanted to come through here and center this, I'm going to go back to home and then center this data. Okay, maybe I'll come up here and add some color and maybe a box around here. This could really be any sort of formatting you're looking at. It's all going to be recorded by the macro. Finally here we'll go ahead and do some formulas. So if I wanted to record the minimum and maximum of the values in the box, this is going to be equals min parentheses, add in what that is, and that gives me a value, and the maximum, oops, maximum of these values as well gives me 86. So you can see that that all works there. So we're going to go up back to developer, and we're going to hit stop recording. So if I come to macro 2 here, this is just a blank file so far, and let's just see if we were to access that macro and see what happens. So go into macros here, you're going to see that there is personal MacBook, but we want to go down to the record. That's the one that we recorded. This is just storing some of the data that we had, and we're just going to hit run. Okay, so when we hit run, realize that only what was recorded came through. You can see that since we didn't have any of those other values in here, if you go back, the add values, add formatting, and add formulas is not there. Okay, and these values here, when we did the formulas, it was referencing these values here, and so those came up accurately because the minimum of those is 0 and the maximum of those is 0. So remember that as you do this, it's only doing exactly, explicitly what you tell it to do, and nothing more. Now if we were to go ahead and get rid of that, let's just delete this, and if we did it again, remember that we can do it Control-Shift-R, so if I hit Control-Shift and R, same thing happens. Again, only what is recorded it shows up, and so if we wanted to do this, this would be actually, if you had a file that already had the data in there, that would be very useful for. So that's the basics so far on macros, and next we'll go into relative reference in the next video.